Hey everybody, welcome to Beaming Notes, and today we're going to look at the summary of the poem Mending Wall by Robert Frost. Setting of the poem. This poem is set at the site of the stone wall between the farms of two hard-working men of New England, one of whom is the poet himself. There is speculation on how the said wall has come to be broken. There is the talk of rebuilding the wall as well. Summary, lines 1 to 4. Something there is that doesn't love a wall, that sends the frozen ground swell under it, and spills the upper boulders in the sun, and makes gaps even two can pass abreast. The poem consists of 46 lines in total. These lines are divided into stanzas. Here they are divided into meaningful segments in order to make the poem easier to follow and understand. This poem is written in the first person, hence we can safely assume that the speaker of the poem is the poet himself. In these lines, the poet speculates that there must be something in the vicinity that breaks down the wall again and again. Perhaps the water beneath the ground is frozen and resulting ice expands to cause cracks in the wall and to make the boulders at its top fall down. The crack then grows until it's so wide that two people can pass through it side by side and walk in the same direction. Summary, lines 5 to 11. The work of hunters is another thing. I have come after them and made repair, where they have left not one stone on a stone, but they would have the rabbit out of hiding. To please the yelping dogs, the gaps I mean, no one has seen them made or heard them made. But at spring, mending time, we find them there. In these lines, the poet rejects the idea that the wall could have been broken by hunters. He himself has made repairs after hunters have rearranged the stones to follow rabbits to come out of their holes for their dogs to catch. However, the gaps that have now appeared on the wall have been made by something that is unseen and unheard. Summary, lines 12 to 15. I let my neighbor know beyond the hill, and on a day we meet to walk the line, and set the wall between us once again. We keep the wall between us as we go. In these lines, the poet says the wall is between two lands separated by a hill. The farmer who lives on the other side of the hill is informed about the whole. A day is fixed on which they both meet and walk along the wall, each on his side surveying the damage. Summary, lines 16 to 19. To each the boulders that have fallen to each, and some are loaves and some so nearly balls. We have to use a spell to make them balance. Stay where you are until our backs are turned. In these lines, the poet says that he and his neighbor each take upon themselves to restore the boulders that have fallen on his side of the hill. However, this is a difficult task since the stones are not always of same size and shape. Some are oblong and some are round, and only magic can hold them in their places. Lines 20 to 24. We wear our fingers rough with handling them. Oh, just another kind of outdoor game. One on a side. It comes to little more. There where it is we do not need the wall. He is all pine and I am apple orchard. In these lines, the poet says that his hands, as well as his neighbor's hands, become calloused as a result of picking up the heavy boulders. It feels like they are playing some sort of game where there is only one opponent on each team. It seems like play rather than work because the wall is wholly unnecessary since the two farmers grow a different kind of plant. The poet grows apples and his neighbor grows pine trees. Summary, lines 25 to 29. My apple trees will never get across and eat the cones under his pines, I tell him. He only says, good fences make good neighbors. Spring is a mischief in me, and I wonder if I could put a notion in his head. In these lines, the poet says that he has tried to tell his neighbor that his apple trees will never encroach upon his pines, but that the neighbor remains unconvinced. His logic in putting up the wall is that all good neighbors are separated by strong fences. However, in the springtime, the poet feels mischievous and tries to convince his neighbor to agree with him in another way. Summary, lines 30 to 35. Why do they make good neighbors? Isn't it where there are cows? But here there are no cows. Before I built a wall, I'd ask to know what I was wailing in or wailing out, and to whom I was like to give offense. In these lines, a poet asks his neighbor why good fences make good neighbors. Fences often sprout some greenery on them and they attract cows, but there are no cows where the walls between their farm has broken down. In fact, the poet would like to know what he is keeping out and what he is protecting by building the wall, and also who might not take kindly to the idea of the wall being put up. Summary, lines 36 to 41. Something there is that doesn't love a wall, that wants it down. I could say else to him, but it's not else exactly, and I'd rather he said it for himself. I see him there bringing a stone grasped firmly by the top in each hand, like an old stone savage armed. In these lines, the poet again speculates that the wall could have been pulled down by the elves. But he doesn't want to tell his serious neighbor, hoping instead that the neighbor would come to the same conclusion by himself. As the neighbor works on rebuilding the wall, the poet feels that he resembles an uncouth and uncivilized inhabitant of the Stone Age, whose weapons are those very rocks which make up the wall. Summary, lines 42 to 46. He moves in darkness as it seems to me, not of woods only and the shade of trees. He will not go behind his father's saying, and he likes having thought of it so well. He says again, good fences make good neighbors. In these lines, the poet suggests that his neighbor has some kind of kinship with darkness, but not just the darkness that is caused by the shade of trees in the forest. The neighbor cannot disagree with his father in saying that good fences account for peace among neighbors. Central idea. The wall between the lands of two farmers is broken down by some unknown force every spring, and they must rebuild it. The poet himself does not want the wall there and tries to convince his neighbor of the same. However, his neighbor is sure that fences are required to maintain peaceful relations with neighbors. Conclusion. Mending Wall is typical of Frost's style of writing. It describes something simple only to preach something far more profound. Frost's message about the dispensability of borders is an important one to be making in 1914. The year of the First World War started. His belief that all men should stand united is a message for all times and all seasons. The fact that he could couch such inspirational messages in such uncomplicated verses is what makes Frost one of the greatest American poets of all time.